Up to now, we have been able to produce cucumbers. We produce tomatoes, different varieties, especially those varieties that thrive in the north that people say wouldn't work here. We have been able to grow it. We harvested and we had, the expected yield was accomplished, and we had no incident of disease. Yeah, I'm Dr. Borisade Omotoso. I'm a lecturer in the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, Ekiti State University, especially a major in control of pests and diseases of agricultural crops, with special interest in those diseases that prevent production of specific crops in the southwest Nigeria here. We find out some crops like tomatoes, all those cucumbers, beetroot and so on do well in the northern part of the country. But we are looking at a way of domesticating those crops around here. And what has always been the problem is prominence of pests and diseases here, and that has been the focus of my research, to use biological control systems to develop crops that will be resistant to such diseases and pests that are our hindrance here. So we can then be able to produce here without much dependence on importation from the northern part of the country. That's in my essential work. Yeah, we've done, with my team, I have some Ph.D. students and so on that we work together. With my team, we've done a lot of laboratory works, and we have been able to develop some resistant crops in the lab. And we have about 1 hectare pilot farm where we try to produce crops and test if what we have done in the lab will actually work in the field. And up to now, we have been able to produce cucumbers. We produce tomatoes, different varieties, especially those varieties that thrive in the north that people say wouldn't work here. We have been able to grow it. We harvested and we had, the expected yield was accomplished, and we had no incident of disease in the crops that we modified to be adaptable to the environment. We are not using genetic modification. It's a new area where we try to use some endophytes that are natural protectants. We try to introduce them to the crop to make them build resistance to diseases. It's very simple. We are not going to we didn't modify the genetics. We didn't touch any of those natural traits of the organisms. We only introduced some organisms into the plant that are symbionts, and they are working quite effectively. We have some of them already that we are thinking of registering and then producing them in large quantities, probably to be able to give it to farmers. And all along, we have been successful. No, they are not going to have any effect on the nutrient, because those things that we introduce to the plant, you will not even detect them in the fruits. You see, in the natural environment, plants do grow. For instance, in the wild, you see the wild species of these crops that we domesticate, they also have their wild sisters in the let me call it that way, in the bush, that are not domesticated. You find out most of these diseases don't affect those wild varieties that are in the bush there. But the one that we have domesticated here, somehow, some of them have lost their natural resistance. So what we do is we look for a sister plant from the same family, and then we try to see if we can get endophytes from them that are conferring resistance against the diseases, and then we will introduce those endophytes into the domesticated species that we are using for human consumption. So it doesn't have any negative effect on the taste or whatever. It's only going to improve the plant for better nutrient utilization efficiency. So in some soils that are even marginally fertile, we found out those ones that we treated with the endophytes developed large root. There is a better root development, and then they were able to utilize resources from the soil better, but not having any adverse effect on the fruits. If it's going to have adverse effect on the fruits and the nutritive properties, I think it's not worth doing at all. So what we introduce into the plants are things we got from the same environment that the plant exists. You understand what I'm saying? So if you even plant the crops in some environments, they naturally acquire these endophytes by themselves. So it's as if we are trying to help them to get the endophytes to confer resistance on them. So we're not altering anything. We are not introducing strains from outside or bringing it from somewhere. We get it from the soil or from sister insects and the insect comes to my mind all the time. We get it from the sister plants in the wild or get it from the soil and then try to let the plants have those endophytes that will improve them. And it's working. You see, because it's a new area of research and that we are introducing an organism into a plant, one has to go through the normal process of registering those organisms for biosafety. They are safe, we know they are safe, but there are protocols to register those organisms. We are trying to do sequencing for some of these organisms to specifically know them, and then while the experiment is still going on, if we have finished our sequencing and able to detect and know the exact strain of the endophytes that we are using, we will have to proceed to visit the NAFDAC or any other body that is responsible for registration of new products. It's after we have registered the new products that we can then begin to sell to farmers, because we have to remove concerns about safety of the users and the crops safety also for consumers. We know they are safe, but we have to undergo the normal process of registration before we can begin to sell it to farmers. But it's something that is very important we do on time. You know. We wrote a proposal to some international governments on this research, and they are willing to support. So it might be possible for us to have local support too, if we're able, that will make it faster. And in the process of registration, I initially approached the website of the NAFDAC for registration of bioproducts. Accommodation of such new bioproducts in their registration might be a little bit strenuous, because it's likely that such bioproducts have not been among the things that have been registered in the past, unlike chemical insecticides. So we expect to come across some challenges in the registration, but I believe it's something that is doable. Yeah.